based on the last call we just had. So you seem to have a technique when you put out an objection, you affirm the objection, understand their situation, then restate their pain, and explain to them how what I'm proposing actually makes everything so much better. Now, keep in mind that sales in general is really just asking questions in order that gets you a result. That's what sales is. That's case in point what sales is. It's not about forcing people to make decisions. It's not about making people uncomfortable. It's not about sounding, quote, salesy, but it is just simply asking questions that get people to make some type of decision. That's what it is. So when you're speaking to someone and they give you an objection, all an objection is typically it's just a question, right? I mean, like they're typically just asking you a question, and we take it in sales, we term it and we call it a objection. However, there are also conditions, okay? There's objections and conditions. Does anybody know the difference of a condition versus an objection? We'll do a little bit of interactive sesh. Won't stop. Come off mute. What's a condition?
So if I can get this, then I will sell my property.
I would actually call that an objection, okay?
Okay.
The reason why is a condition is not something, the way I explain conditions is that it's something that you cannot handle. There's no like a objection handler to a condition. A condition is my husband's sick and I can't sell until he's feeling better. There's nothing I'm going to say that handles that objection, right? That is a condition. Or similar, in the, really simply in the residential world, when someone would say, I can't sell until my kids are out of college, or my kids, until the summertime, my kids out of school. For commercial real estate, it can be like, I can't sell until after taxes, tax season. I can't sell until after this refinance. I can't sell until X, Y, Z. That is a condition. When they say like, I will sell if I get X terms, right? Like 5 million, these terms, right? Like that, that is part of an objection, right? Like, which is just, okay, can I meet it or not? When you're negotiating, when you're on your sales calls, doing your prospecting calls, it's important to really have, it's important to have a complete awareness when you're in a conversation, like the conversation I just had. This woman is in and her husband are in a bad partnership, okay? They own a building with a bad partner who's not willing to sell it. They want to sell, this partner doesn't. So they're basically saying like, hey, like if we can get a stupid number for a building, they're not going to get $10 million for a 40-unit building in this location, then they'll sell. And then they said like, not even that they will sell, they will then go to court to fight with the partner to force him to sell. For the situations like that, which by the way, I mean, like this is just people's personal issues. I mean, it kind of sucks, right? Like, but when you're dealing with this kind of stuff, it's like when I'm in the moment with her, I am not thinking about how do I get a listing. I'm not thinking about how I can get this property sold. It's how do I solve her problem. That's all I care about. I just want to solve her problem. And immediately the question I have and I proposed to her is like, okay, well, you have an interest in the property. What if you just sold your interest where then you don't have to worry about this partner? And to me, whether or not the property actually sells and I make anything, me just thinking of what's best for her, that actually might be the best overall solution where she can get out from underneath this pain that this challenge is giving her. So when you're speaking to somebody, and just like I had another previous call, I mean, we'd have a lot of phone calls. I think they had like 3 or 4 or 5 calls. And one guy was like saying like, look, he's interested in selling. He wants $200 a square foot. $200 a foot is a little high for this market. He's on gross rents. Everyone in his property is on gross rents. So they're like $20 a foot gross, roughly. Okay, $20 a foot gross. The problem with $20 a foot gross is that the building, the expenses are about, let's call it about 100. So the thing net's about 180. 180 into 2.8 is not exactly a spectacular cap rate. What I would say is like, hey, like if I can go in and then I can get everything rented for even 16 a foot triple net times the 14,000, which is still not enough. I'm trying to remember what number we ran. I think we ran it at 18 triple net then. 18, 16, 17, 18. 18 triple net times 14,000 feet is 250. So the point is like he's at this really difficult point where he wants a little bit too much money for a property in this case where it's really hard for me to get this deal done. Now, I get this question a lot. It's like, what do you actually do when you get a property? What would you do? Right here, you can come off mute. What have all of you been doing when you get a lead? Which, by the way, if you have any more questions, please drop them in the chat box down below. Raise your virtual hand. We'll go in order. I can stay late today. I got extra time. So we're going to have a little bit of a longer session today just because I've got extra time today. So just to clarify, though, I just want to understand, what is everyone in this room doing with the leads that are a little bit overpriced? A little bit too much money. Someone wants a little bit too much money. What are you doing?
If they're like, we push them as hard as we can go, we're just putting them into a bucket to convert to a listing.
What does the bucket look like?
It starts with just trying to set an appointment. Have everything classified in Follow Up Boss as like a certain stage based off of like your systems.
Yep.
So we just put them into that, and then we try and focus on those things when we're prospecting first in the day, to move those to the next step. And if not, we hit them again the next day, first thing in the morning, until we can get somewhere with it, or we just put them on a nurture campaign.
Perfect. Who else? Anybody? Does anybody do the same thing? Does anybody do something different? Thank you.
I'm mostly doing the same thing, but I'm offering up some kind of creative terms. So if I can't compete on price, I'm trying to compete on terms.
Okay, amazing.
And then if they're still a no, then I'm doing the same thing. I'm putting them in a nurture campaign. We're trying to list it.
Sometimes if I can get their numbers, I try to underwrite it and show them the underwriting, but also I try to get some comps, let it be sales comps for that asset type, try to get the price per square foot market rates and kind of show them that and show them what they're asking and kind of show them the math of like, hey, how you're getting that. And this is what market rates are paying right now. Hopefully get some wiggle room.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Obviously, of course, these individuals, when they want a little bit too much money, we start off with a starter offer, right? We try to see if there's any negotiations or any wiggle room in the pricing. We get as much wiggle room in the pricing, and hopefully we can get them to come down to some number. In a perfect world, we get them to come down to a number that will cause it to sell. If that happens, great, we move them down the pipeline. Now, we're going to say that you can't, right? Like we made them a starter offer. They do not want to come down in price, okay? They are stuck at whatever number that they were. It's either I get my number or not, right? Like these types of sellers where there's not a high level of motivation. It's just sort of like, if I get my number, great, I'll sell. If I don't get my number, I don't need to sell. Thanks, have a nice day. Of course, Amani also brought up the idea of trying to adjust and try to pivot to terms. Of course, instead of competing on price, you can compete on terms and try to do seller financing, any type of creative financing, and trying to get to a point where they will agree. Now, let's just say again, they don't want creative financing. They just want a straight up deal and they still want too much money. Of course, we can try to pitch a listing. Not my favorite option, to be honest with all of you. Definitely not my favorite option, not even my more likely option, just because I don't like overpriced listings. Now, I know like a lot of people still are open to the idea of taking listings. That's totally fair. I'm not here to say listings are stupid. I think that taking stupid listings is stupid. So, just keeping in mind how overpriced are they is important to pay attention to, because a little bit is fine, like a 10-ish% or less overpriced, based on, where you see numbers, right? Like if you think it could sell for 2.5 and you have it for 2.8, it's fine. If you think it could sell for 2.5 and they want 4, I think you'd be silly to list it. But again, to each their own. What do you do next? Of course, you should be putting them into some type of follow-up campaign, right? Something that will follow up with them over time, right? Where they're sending out automatic text messages, emails, ringless voicemails, and constantly just kind of dripping on them. You can add them to a newsletter campaign, so they get hit maybe once a week or once a month when you send that out. Some type of follow-up campaign where you're touching base with this individual on the phone, something like every quarter or every 6 months, depending on how overpriced they are. Okay, because if it's like 10% and they didn't want to list it, that person should be on a little bit like we literally have a stage in follow-up boss, which is literally just overpriced, where we have a stage where it's just an overpriced column where anybody who has a 1031, this could be a great bucket of properties to send to these individuals. So just keep in mind that like these are not properties that I would toss out the window. It's just who you market them to needs to be adjusted. Right? Like my buddy, who you just kind of heard him talking, the guy buys steals. Like I can't give this guy properties when they want market value or market value plus. I'm a market value plus seller, right? Like think about it. If you guys are my partners and we don't need to sell, I'm going to ask for more than market value. Right? Like who cares? I don't need to sell the property. It doesn't make me a stupid seller. It just means that I don't need to sell it, right? Like there is a huge difference, right? And I think that too many people try to convince sellers otherwise, which look, Howie, I love that you brought up the comps. I think that's something that a lot of people don't do enough of, where you can kind of, we look at a chessboard holistically, right? Like, of course you can move a pawn, but you also have like all these other moves you can make. Like you have so many different moves you can make where it's not just, oh, they're overpriced, and I pitched a listing, they don't want it, but it's how many different, moves can I make here to try to see if there's any adjustment. I would just bring up the fact that I believe comps is a smart move to support the starter offers, to support true offers, to support the idea of listing at a lower price. Comps are very valuable, right? Like you can definitely use comps, to help. It helps sway when there is a possible movement in their decision making. Where like in the instance where someone goes, listen, I'm open to the idea of selling. I'm not really sure of what it's worth. you make them an offer and they're iffy about it. That type of situation makes a lot of sense. But when they go, hey, I want $20 million or I don't need to sell it, and they own 60 properties, and you're trying to send this guy comps, it's like, I don't know what you're trying to accomplish at that point.
One thing I like to add is like one thing I make sure that I'm not speaking on behalf of this is what I think your property's worth.
Yeah.
I'll say, hey, based on the market, this is what the market's showing. This is how the market's performing. This is where the market's at. So I'm blaming it on the market.
Sure.
In the current conditions, and not my opinion or my buyers.
Sure. No, look, I agree with you. I think that's a very smart play. I just think that also, just to clarify my perspective on when it works really well and when it doesn't work. So just being cognizant of, I think comps are actually a huge supporter when they're in a sway situation, when the seller is like open to the idea of selling and like they don't have, it's not like stuck on a certain price. It's more swaying on uncertainty of value. Comps are very important to play that card when they're stuck on certain pricing. And it's not really, because like I don't give a, like I'll give you an example. One of my properties, you could give me every comp under the fucking sun, and I still wouldn't give a shit. It's like I don't need to sell whatsoever seller, and if you want to buy my property, you're going to overpay for it. Just keep in mind, like those are the instances I just want you to make sure that we're all aware of, where there's a lot of sellers like me, where like you can call me like, yeah, sure, if the price is right, but like what happens is we get obsessive with these sellers. We're like, oh, well, I'm open to the idea of selling. You're like, oh my God, yes, I got one. This is great. Let's go make some money. But it's like, we need to really vet these sellers and what is the likelihood of actually transacting here? Anyways, I'm in agreement, right? Like, great point.